What's going on? I am the Shadow Man, and welcome to Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. Today we're going to be doing my Gravekeeper deck list. This video is requested by Ghost Nappa 335. So without further ado, we're going to start this off with the Charm of Shati. During either player's turn, you can discard this card, and until the end phase, Gravekeeper monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle. This is a good card to have if your opponents have high attack power monsters or are very attack happy, especially if you need to keep a Gravekeeper on the field for a tribute summon your next turn. The next card on our list is the Gravekeeper's Priestess. While there is no face-up field spell on the field, treat the field as if it is Necrovalley. Also, all Gravekeeper monsters on the field gain 200 attack and defense. The Gravekeeper's Priestess can come in handy from time to time if you don't have a Necrovalley on the field, as well as give your Gravekeeper monsters a 200 attack and defense point boost, in addition to the 500 attack and defense point boost you already get when Necrovalley is on the field. The next card on our list is the Gravekeeper's Nobleman. When this card is destroyed by battle by your opponent's attacking monster, you can special summon any Gravekeeper monster from your deck in face down defense position. Basically, I would use this card in combination with the Spy, the Guard, or the Shaman. Now, I'm sure there are other combinations you can use with this card, but those are the three that I find most effective. If you do use the Nobleman, I recommend using 3 of them, and if you use it correctly with the Spy, it can save you from at least 5 to 6 direct attacks. Next on our list is the Gravekeeper's Headman. When this card is summoned, you can special summon one level 4 Gravekeeper monster from your graveyard. Now, it doesn't matter if this card is normal summoned or special summoned, meaning you can special summon it from your deck with the Spy to special summon someone like the Descendant from your graveyard and pop 2 cards right then and there. Now, currently at this time I'm only using 2 of them, but figure out what works best for you. It can be very useful in a lot of tight spots. Next is the Gravekeeper Spy. Flip effect monster that allows you to special summon any Gravekeeper with 1500 attack or less from your deck. And with a defense of 2000 plus the 500 point boost from Necrovalley if you have it on the field, you have a decent wall in front of you that can be used in combination with a number of the Gravekeepers in your deck. I recommend 3 of them, but, see what works best for you. Next we have the Gravekeeper's Chief. For some reason you can only have one Gravekeeper's Chief at a time on the field, but with him on the field your graveyard is unaffected by Necrovalley, which can come in handy if you run any cards that are not Gravekeeper monsters. And when you do tribute summon him, you can target one Gravekeeper with no restrictions from your graveyard and special summon it. And just like you can only have one on the field at a time, I only have one of them in this deck. Next we have the Gravekeeper's Spiritualist, and in my opinion one of the most powerful cards in this deck. During your main phase, if Necrovalley is on the field, you can fusion summon one spellcaster from your extra deck, but you have to use this card in addition with the cards in your hand or field. Using this card in combination with a number of other Gravekeepers can help you get the Supernaturalist on the field pretty easily. I'm currently only using 2 of them in this deck, but I do highly recommend using 3. Next we have the Gravekeeper's Descendant. You can tribute one other Gravekeeper monster you control to target one card your opponent controls and destroy it. And using him in combination with the Headman, the Spy, or the Chief can really save you in a tight spot. I really only recommend 2 of them because by himself he's not exactly the greatest, even with his 500 attack point boost from Necrovalley giving him 2000 attack. But without Necrovalley he's only got 1500 attack and he's pretty useless on his own. Next up we have the Gravekeeper's Commandant, a monster that will very rarely ever see the field of battle. You can discard this card to the graveyard to add one Necrovalley from your deck to your hand. The Commandant's whole purpose in life is to get Necrovalley on the field. You want to have 3 of this guy in your deck always. It's the fastest way to get Necrovalley if you don't have it in your hand and you need it in a pinch. Next up we have the Gravekeeper's Guard, another key player in this deck, a flip effect monster that targets one monster your opponent controls and returns it to the hand. Good card to have if your opponent has monsters that can't be destroyed by battle or card effects, but can still be targeted by card effects. The Guard here has saved my ass in duels multiple times in the past. Right now I'm only running 2 of them, but I have run 3 in the past and it's worked pretty well for me. He's not the greatest card in the world in every situation, but he does come in handy a lot. Next we have my personal favorite, the Gravekeeper's Visionary. He can be tribute summoned by tributing only one Gravekeeper monster, and he gains 200 attack for each Gravekeeper monster in your graveyard. But this next part is why he's my favorite. If this face-up card would be destroyed for any reason, you can discard one Gravekeeper monster from your hand instead. Meaning as long as you have a Gravekeeper monster in your hand, he basically can't die. However, he can still be banished. Currently I'm only using 2, but you can easily get away with using 3 of him in a deck. Next up we have the Gravekeeper's Oracle. Now his effect is pretty complicated, so we're going to try and simplify it a little bit. Basically, you contribute 1, 2, or 3 Gravekeeper monsters to get 1, 2, or 3 of his effects. Now which of his effects you get to use is basically up to you and the situation that you're in. And his effects are: the Gravekeeper's Oracle can gain 100 attack times the combined number of stars used to summon him. So if the Gravekeepers had a total of 8 stars, he'd gain 800 extra attack points. His second effect is pretty simple. He just destroys all set monsters your opponent controls. And his third effect is pretty easy as well. All monsters your opponent currently controls lose 2,000 attack and defense points. Now I find myself using this effect more than any other effect when I'm using the Oracle. Now I would only really use 2 of him in any Gravekeeper deck, but that's just my personal preference. Next we move on to spells and traps with the Gravekeeper Stele. Target 2 Gravekeeper monsters in your graveyard and add those targets to your hand. Now the downside of this card is you can literally only activate it if you have at least 2 Gravekeepers in your graveyard, but it does come in handy more often than not. I'd only really keep 2 of these in any Gravekeeper deck. You don't really need more than that. Next up we have the Necrovalley Throne. For this card you can activate one of 2 different effects. The first effect is add 1 Gravekeeper monster from your deck to your hand. I find myself using this first effect more than the other one, just so I can get the Commandant and Necrovalley onto the field relatively quickly. The second effect is immediately after this effect resolves, normal summon 1 Gravekeeper monster from your hand. This effect comes in handy if you need to do a quick tribute summon to get either the Oracle or the Visionary on the field. I currently only have 1 of these in my deck, but I would recommend using 3 of them if you have them available. Next is the most important card in this deck, the Necrovalley Field Spell. All Gravekeeper monsters gain 500 attack and defense. Cards in the graveyard cannot be banished. Negate the effect of any card that would move a card from your graveyard to any other location. And lastly, negate any card effect that would change the type or attribute in the graveyard. I would always use 3 Necrovalleys in every single Gravekeeper deck. If you are not using 3 of them, then you are doing something wrong. Next up we have Gravekeeper Servant. Unless your opponent sends the top card of their deck to the graveyard, they cannot declare an attack. Pretty simple card, but very effective, especially in combination with Necrovalley whenever your opponent can't do anything with their graveyard after the fact. Currently I'm only using 2, but you could get away with running 3 of them in a deck. Next we have Hidden Temples of Necrovalley. Activate only if both a Gravekeeper monster and Necrovalley are on the field. Neither player can special summon monsters except for Gravekeeper monsters. And if either a Gravekeeper monster or Necrovalley is not on the field, destroy this card. Now if you can play this card just right, you can literally shut down anything your opponent can do, giving you a major advantage in terms of monsters. I currently only use 2 of them in my Gravekeeper deck. Next we have Rite of Spirit. Target 1 Gravekeeper monster in your graveyard and special summon that target. This card's activation and effect are unaffected by Necrovalley. Pretty simple card, but can be very effective in the right situation. I recommend using 2 Rite of Spirit in any Gravekeeper deck. You could get away with 3, but 2 should be plenty. Next we have the Imperial Tombs of Necrovalley. When a spell, trap, or monster effect is activated while both a Gravekeeper's monster and Necrovalley are on the field, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. It's basically the Gravekeeper's version of Solemn Judgment, but without paying the life points for it. However, you can only activate 1 Imperial Tombs of Necrovalley per turn. I keep 2 of them in my Gravekeeper deck for emergencies. And last but not least, for the main deck, we have Necrovalley Temple. While a Gravekeeper's monster and Necrovalley are both on the field, monsters your opponent controls lose 500 attack and defense. Once per turn during the main phase, if you control no cards in your field zone, you can activate 1 Necrovalley directly from your hand or graveyard. And if this card in your possession is destroyed by an opponent's card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can set 1 Necrovalley spell or trap card directly from your deck except Necrovalley Temple. I keep 2 Necrovalley Temples in my Gravekeeper decks. They can come in handy in a lot of situations, especially if you run out of Necrovalleys and they're all in your graveyard. And last but not least, we move on to the extra deck, which has the Gravekeeper's Supernaturalist, who can only be fusion summoned by using 2 Gravekeeper monsters, which is where the Gravekeeper Spiritualist comes into play. The Supernaturalist gains attack and defense equal to the combined original levels of the materials used for its fusion summon by 100. So like the Gravekeeper's Oracle, if the combined stars is 8 for the fusion materials used to summon him, he gains 800 attack. Also, while Necrovalley is on the field, this card and any card in your field zone cannot be destroyed by card effects. And during your main phase, you can activate this effect. During the end phase of this turn, add one Gravekeeper's monster or Necrovalley card from your deck to your hand. Now, I personally like to use this effect in combination with the Hidden Temples of Necrovalley or the Imperial Tombs of Necrovalley. Those are just my go-to cards of choice for that effect. You can only use this effect once per turn. And that'll about do it for my personal Gravekeeper deck here. Now, there are still a bunch of Gravekeeper monsters out there that I did not show you guys. I just don't use them, but play around with them, see what works best for you. And if you can get the right cards and get the deck to work for you just the right way, it will be completely unstoppable and your opponent will be shut down from using anything. And that's going to do it for this video here today. If there are any other deck lists that I have or ones that you want me to build, just let me know in the comments down below and I will get started on that right away. But in the meantime, in between time, if you did enjoy this video, please leave a like, share, and subscribe. And we will see what kind of trouble we can get into in the next video. We'll see you in the next one.